Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for the first half of Season 1 of The House of the Dragon, as well as my predictions for the second half of the season of The House of the Dragon upcoming. So, as long as you have seen the first 5 episodes of House of the Dragon, then you are good for the first part of this video when I do a review. There will only be spoilers if for some reason you clicked on this without having actually watched the episodes, then you would be foolishly spoiled. But as long as you've seen the first 5 episodes, there will be no spoilers for the review part of this video. But when I get to the predictions part of the video, I will give you plenty of warning. If you have not read Fire and Blood, the source material, then you will want to skedaddle. You'll want to get out of here. Unless, of course, you don't mind if you're spoiled. If you don't care about being spoiled, then by all means, stay. But as far as people who won't be spoiled, it would be people who have read Fire and Blood, because my predictions are completely based off of what has transpired in the source material and what is likely to transpire in the show. So my predictions are a lot of when are certain things going to happen, how is the show going to interpret certain events that happened in the book, that kind of thing. So if you have read the source material and you're into that kind of thing, then stick around for the entire video. For those of you who haven't read the book, then I will let you know when it is time to go. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into the review portion of this video. Alright, I have talked a lot about House of the Dragon weekly over on my brother's channel, Enchantment of Eternity. Wonderful live discussions with him and our friend Darren from D's Reviews. So I've gone into a lot more depth before over on that channel. So this is going to be more of a summary of my feelings before I get into the predictions part of the show. And so when I first heard of House of the Dragon, like a lot of people, I had a lot of trepidation. In fact, I named it as one of the shows I am least excited about in 2022, back when I did that video back in January. And in all that, I kind of forgot about one thing, one thought that I had when I first read Fire and Blood. What was that, like 2016, I think? 2017? Whenever that was. When I first read that book, I had this thought. When I got to this particular section of that book, it covers the whole history of the Targaryens, but when I got to the section of the book that is being covered by this show, I remember thinking, they need to make a show out of this. This would be such a good show. And I actually forgot that I thought that, because I just got so caught up in how much Game of Thrones Season 8 sucked and just how sour I was on the whole franchise, that I actually had forgotten until I started going back recently and rereading that section of Fire and Blood. I had forgotten that had been my thought, and that was before Game of Thrones was off the air. That was before there was any talk of any sort of prequel, sequel, or anything for Game of Thrones. I just thought on my own, like, this would be a great fucking story for a show. And so far, I think they have done a fantastic job with adapting the source material. It's one of the better adaptations that I have seen of anything thus far. There's only been 5 episodes, obviously, but I think they have done an excellent job. And they haven't really gotten to the good part yet. They haven't gotten to the part where it was like, ooh, they need to make a show out of this. This was all like the setup part. And yet still, I am engaged, I'm enthralled, I'm drawn in. And I'm not reviewing Lord of the Rings, but I will make this contrast here, where a lot of the complaints on Lord of the Rings so far is that it just feels like it's all setup. Well, House of the Dragon is also set up, but I think what the difference more is that House of the Dragon is set up that is engaging. It draws you into the characters, draws you into the political intrigue, it draws you in, and you want to know what the characters are going to do next. You care about the characters, you want to know what's going to happen next. Whereas Lord of the Rings feels like just set up and nothing else other than set up. And I think that's the difference there. I think this is some of the most effective setup that I've seen. And now that we've gotten through the first half of the season, I do expect that we are going to really start picking up the pace with each successive episode until we get to the finale. But of course, I'll talk more about what I think is going to happen when I get to the predictions part of this. But I do want, without spoiling what hasn't happened yet in the source material, I do want to give a couple of examples of how well the show has adapted the source material within the stuff that we have already seen on screen. There's a couple of examples to show what an amazing job the show has done adapting the source material. I want to read you a couple passages. And don't worry, I'm not reading you anything that hasn't yet happened on the show. This first thing I'm going to read is actually describing something that happened back in episode 1. And I'm just blown away of what the show did with this. Was it 1 or 2 sentences? I think it might even be one long sentence. No, there's 2 sentences here. And what the show did with those 2 sentences is fantastic. And this is just one example. And they just kept doing things like this over and over again. So let me read how Queen Aemma's death from episode 1 was described in the source material. Thus did matters stand in King's Landing late in the year 105 AC, when Queen Aemma was brought to bed in Maegor's Holdfast, and died, whilst giving birth to the son that Viserys Targaryen had desired for so long. The boy, named Balon after the king's father, survived her only by a day, leaving king and court bereft. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's all that's ever mentioned about that. Did you see what they did with that in the show? Really powerful, if not yet maybe controversial scene where Viserys is making a really tough choice, but he's choosing for his wife because it emphasizes how women don't have the choice, which is eerily too similar to present day, and it just brings up all kinds of emotions in you. Maybe some of them aren't always good. There could be negative and positive emotions, but it's just such an incredible, powerful, gripping scene out of 2 sentences. That's where they got that from. And the way they interspliced it with the melee was fantastic. The melee happened, that particular melee, where Kristen Cole fights Daemon. There's a couple different melees that are referenced in the book, but that particular one had happened, I think, before this. But the way that they intercut those 2 scenes was extremely powerful. That's what they did with 2 sentences. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. And that's just one example again. And I also, so I kind of want to talk about some of the choices that the show decided to make, because the source material is written from the perspective of a maester who's writing historical text. So the maester is recording the official historical record, but George R.R. Martin is a little sly, and he gives us little, maybe subtle hints, inferences of what we could maybe glean between the lines, but there's a lot of it up for interpretation, so the show gets to choose how they want to interpret events. So now I want to read the description of something that happened at the beginning of episode 5, the most recent episode as I'm recording this. In 115 AC, there came a tragic mishap of the sort that shapes the destiny of kingdoms. The bronze bitch of Rhinestone, Lady Raya Royce, fell from her horse whilst hawking and cracked her skull upon a stone. That's it. She was hawking, she fell off her horse, and she cracked her skull, and that's all there was to it. But it's interesting to note that in the post-show HBO show, Ryan Condal, one of the showrunners, mentioned, well, I read that line in the book, and I thought, oh yeah, Daemon did it. He totally did it. And I thought the same as I think. I read this line that she cracked her skull open, fell from her horse and cracked her skull open on a stone. Like, that was an accident, huh? After all the way up to this, Daemon keeps complaining about her, doesn't want to be married to her. He tried to marry or ask for Rhaenyra's hand just as he does in the show. All of that stuff. You're gonna tell me he didn't kill her? Yeah, right. He totally killed her. So I interpreted it the same way as the showrunner did, but it doesn't say that there. It doesn't say anything about Daemon murdering her. This is the official historical account that just says she fell from her horse. So the show has had to make choices like that, and those so far, I absolutely love some of the choices that the show has made. They make choices that make sense for the television screen, and so I'm loving these showrunners. I'm a little sad that Miguel Sapochnik won't be back next year, but hopefully Ryan Condal is also a big part of why I love this show this year, so hopefully that'll carry forward next year, because I absolutely love this as an adaptation. Now, before I get into the predictions part of this video, I do want to give a shout out to the acting. It has been superb, and I want to give a special round of applause to two actresses who will no longer be in the show moving forward, and that is Millie Alcock and Emily Carey, playing the younger versions of Princess Ranera and Queen Alyssa Hightower, respectively. They are going to be replaced by two new actresses who should be there for the long haul. But they both did an excellent job, so much to the point where a lot of people are a little hesitant to see them replaced. But from what I've gleaned so far, I think that both the new actresses will also do an excellent job, so I'm not super worried about it. We will continue, though, to get killer performances from the likes of Paddy Constantine and Matt Smith, and I think his name is Rhys Ifans, the guy who plays Sir Otto, all doing excellent jobs as well. So the writing is good, the adaptation is good, the acting is superb. So this has been an excellent show so far, and it honestly hasn't gotten to the good part yet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do moving forward. There is a little bit of hesitancy with the huge time jump. We got about a decade time jump coming up, different actresses. All of a sudden there's going to be all these kids running around. So there's a little bit of trepidation there, but I'm confident that the show will pull it off. But I will let you know at the end of the season what I think of it, how they did. And also I'll let you know how I did on my predictions at the end of the season. But first, let me give you my predictions. So this is where, if you have not actually read the source material, this is where you need to make like a tree and get out of here, because it is time for me to do my very, very, very spoiler-filled predictions based off of things that happen in the book that have not yet happened in the show. So this is your warning. If you are leaving, thank you so much for watching. Please join me weekly over on Enchantment of Eternity as I discuss House of the Dragon with my brother Mark. And please join me at the end of the season as I do my review for the full season, and I'll let you know how I thought of it. All right, everyone who has read the books, stick around. Everyone else, thank you for joining me. See you later.
Warning! Warning! Warning!
Okay, that should be a sufficient warning. I am going to do 7 predictions, and then I will come back at the end of the season, and I'll give you my score. I'll let you know how many of these I actually got correct. Hopefully more than 0. That's probably high hopes. So a lot of these are when I think something is going to happen from the books, and some of these are how I think the book is going, or the show rather, is going to interpret certain events from the books, or some of the creative choices that I think they might make on putting it on the screen. So those are the kinds of things I'm going to talk about, and I have 7 of those. So without further ado, let me go ahead and dive into my 7 predictions. Okay, here we go with prediction number 1. Viserys' death will take place at the end of episode 8. So this is the when of his death, and I'll get into the how of his death in the next prediction in just a minute here. But as far as when it will happen, it'll happen at the end of episode 8, which goes against conventional wisdom, which says Game of Thrones always has the big events happening in episode 9. But here's what I'm thinking. The titles have come out for the rest of the episodes, and episode 9 is titled The Green Council. Now, while you could have Viserys' death somewhere in the beginning or middle of the episode and then have the Green Council after that, I think that the show is going to take a whole episode to focus on the Green Council. Maybe not the council itself, but the characters from that council and the different political intrigue and drama that is happening with all of those characters. So I think it makes the most sense for Viserys to kick the bucket at the very end of episode 8. I also think that makes a good episode ending. It's a good cliffhanger, leaving you hanging for the next week, the big episode 9, wondering what is going to happen. So that is how I think the show will handle it. Viserys will die at the very end of episode 8. Now let's talk about the how of Viserys' death with prediction number 2. Alyssa will poison Viserys. So in the source material, Viserys' death is described as him just simply having died peacefully in his sleep. There is speculation out there that perhaps Alyssa or somebody may have poisoned him, but no, according to the Maester who is recording this history for us in Fire and Blood, the official account states that he simply just died in his sleep. Much as the show changed how things are interpreted for Lady Raya Royce's death at the beginning of episode 5, I think they will do the same thing here, and I think the show will definitively show us that Alyssa will poison Viserys. And why I think this is going to happen is that I think Viserys is going to be like the freaking Energizer Bunny, and he won't fucking die. He's just going to keep going and going and going, and Alyssa is going to get tired of it. She's going to keep telling Aegon, okay, you know he's going to die any day now. Look how sick he is. He's got limbs falling off. He can't even stand up anymore. He's going to die any minute now. And then like 5 years later, he's still going to be alive. And I think Alyssa is going to be done with it. And there's going to be a point where Ranera has gone off to Dragonstone to birth her next child. And so I think Alyssa will take that as the perfect opportunity to stage the coup. And the first step in doing that is helping Viserys to die. And I think that she will view it as a mercy killing because he's going to be suffering. He's not going to be having a very high quality of life. So I think she's going to think of it as helping him get out of his misery. I think she's going to see it as doing him a favor rather than a murder. But regardless of how she views it, I think that that is what is going to happen. Alyssa will poison Viserys. Moving on to prediction number 3, there will be no Ranera in episode 9 and no Alyssa appearing in episode 10. So, as I mentioned, we have the episode titles, and episode 9 is the Green Council. Episode 10 is the Black Queen. Now, just because the episodes are called those things does not mean that we can't have Ranera appearing in episode 9 or Alyssa appearing in episode 10, but the two are going to be separated. One's going to be in Dragonstone and one's going to be in the Red Keep, and I think the most effective way for the show to really set up for the big Dance of Dragons conflict is to show what each side is doing to rev up for that conflict one at a time. And so I think the Green Council episode 9, is going to focus solely on the people who are at the Red Keep. It's going to focus on the Green Council. It's going to focus on Lord Beesbury getting thrown into the dungeon or murdered. And I think the conflict is going to come from other people in the Red Keep. And I think we might see more people people than just Beesbury kind of making an argument. So I think there's going to be a lot of great political intrigue there. And then we'll move over to episode 10, and I'll get into more of the details of what I think is going to happen in just a minute. I also think there's not going to be exclusively members of Team Black in episode 10, because one member from the Greens will appear in episode 10, which I'll get to that in just a minute. But I do think that we're not going to see Alyssa, so that we can really focus on Ranera's reaction. And let's go ahead and move on and get into more of those details of what to expect in the finale. Prediction number 4, parallels to Emma in episode 10. So, in other words, what I'm saying here is the show is going to keep intact the scene from the book in which Ranera is giving birth when she finds out about the coup, about the betrayal. And it will also keep intact the fact that the child she is giving birth to will not survive. So the parallels to episode 1 and Ranera's mother are just going to be popping off the screen. There's no way that people are going to miss them. And in fact, I think the show may even point it out to us. There may be a line or two that draws a direct connection to that, but I don't even know that we'll need that. I think that the parallels will be abundantly clear to everyone who is watching, and I think that it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be a really powerful scene. I think that Ranera is going to think back to what her mother told her, that their battlefield is in the bedroom, is giving birth. And I think after she loses this child, after she loses this battle, I think she's going to say something to the effect of, "Fuck that, my battlefield is in the battlefield." And I think that is going to set us up for the Dance of the Dragons conflict coming in season 2. And I think there's going to be a little bit more set up from Ranera, but I'll get to that in just a minute. Now let me go ahead and talk about the other thing I just alluded to, a character from the Green Council who will appear in episode 10 and what's going to happen there. Okay, that takes us to prediction number 5. Eamonn will kill Lucerys in episode 10, but no blood and cheese yet. So it's weird to do a prediction about characters that haven't even been born yet at this point in the show, but I believe we will see them starting in episode 6 as younger children. We may even get to the initial scene where Lucerys cuts out Aemond's eye. That could be as early as next episode. But what's going to happen in episode 9, in that Green Council episode, is we will see Eamonn go off to Storm's End, and then toward the beginning of episode 10, the Black Queen episode, we will see Lucerys go off to Storm's End as well. And then at the very end of the episode, they'll save it for toward the end. It won't be the final scene of the episode. I'll tell you what that's going to be in just a minute. But it will be toward the end of the episode. The two will clash at Storm's End, and things will play out in a similar way to how they did in the books. I don't think it'll be exactly, but I think it'll be similar, where it will result in Eamonn killing Lucerys. But the response to that, Daemon hiring these murderous psychopaths named Blood and Cheese to go into the Red Keep and get revenge, that will be saved for season 2, because Eamonn killing Lucerys will be at the very end of the season, the very end of the season finale. So the Blood and Cheese response will come next season, and I actually can't wait to see what the show does with Blood and Cheese. I think it's going to be really good, and I think it's going to just show once again how terrible Daemon is, that he's going to hire these psychopaths. I think it's going to be good. But in any case, we'll have to wait for season 2 for that part of it. But at the end of the season finale, we will get Lucerys' death at the hands of Eamonn. Moving on to prediction number 6, the season will end with another Ranera narration. So the season is going to end exactly how it began, with the older version of Ranera giving us a narration. And I think that it's going to end just after she finds out that her son Lucifer's has been killed. She's still not going to be fully recovered from losing her child, so she's going to be in a very, let's say, not too happy state, to put it mildly. And this is where she may throw in the line, something to the effect of that I mentioned earlier, where she'll be like, yeah, I actually think my battlefield is my battlefield. And I think that we'll have this narration. It may even start over the aftermath of Eamonn killing Viserys, and I think we will see Daemon flying off and doing things, maybe to start going to go and get blood and cheese. I think we'll see different things being put in motion, and we will also see Ranera herself, and there will be this closing narration that is going to have us so excited for season 2, because it's going to put the Dance of Dragons in motion. We're going to know by the end of this narration that it is on. The shit is going to go down in season 2, and it's going to be a really great way to end the season. And my 7th and final prediction, Mushroom Cameo! And I mean a confirmed Mushroom Cameo. So there's this dwarf who's playing the drums in episode 5 at the wedding celebration thing, and people are like, oh, it's Mushroom. No, it's not. It's a dwarf. There's lots of dwarves, I'm sure, who live in the Seven Kingdoms. I mean a confirmation that we see Mushroom. Now, if it does end up being that same dwarf who was playing the drums, fine, but I still need the confirmation to confirm that it is Mushroom, and I think we are going to get that at some point before the season is over, and I'm going to guess it will come in the finale. And I do think that Mushroom is not going to play a major role in the show. I think when we see him, it's going to be more like a wink wink, nod nod to the book readers. Hey, check it out, it's Mushroom, isn't that cool? Book readers will go, yay, Mushroom, and people didn't read the books will go, who's that guy? Who cares? And I don't think that he will ever play a huge role in the show, but he may make cameos occasionally. So that is my prediction. I'm not making an official prediction of when it will happen, but my guess would be probably toward the end of the season, perhaps in the finale. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for my review and predictions for House of the Dragon. Please join me at the end of the season as I give my final review of the season and also my final review of how I did on my predictions. Hopefully I get one right at least. Thank you guys. Subscribe if you have not already. Hit the like button, bell for notification, and all those sorts of things. And I will see you very, very soon. Goodbye.